So recently I was helping a team member of mine migrate from using PySide inside of Motion Builder to generate UIs and stuff like that to converting over to PySide 2 and actually upgrading to Python 3 in order to make kind of applications that don't need to be interpreted by Motion Builder, stuff that can be used as standalone stuff which can then eventually be packaged into an executable. And yeah, it'd been a while since I've actually set any of this stuff up. But more importantly, we got to a certain point where we wanted to compile UIs, and I wanted to show him how to compile UIs. And as is the case with a lot of this stuff, you kind of get it working on your machine, don't you? And then that knowledge kind of either gets put somewhere, or it's back in the memory banks there in order to try and like figure it back out again. And one of the issues that we had, which is something that has been kind of going around for a little while now, and is probably solved in some capacity, is the whole PySide2uic kind of kabobble and all of that stuff that didn't necessarily get packaged in the pip and stuff like that. So what I thought I would do today is I'm going to do a two-parter. I'm going to do the first part here, which is, as you can see, I'm in a virtual machine here. I'm going to go through the process of actually setting up Eclipse and actually kind of getting all of that stuff to work and getting that stuff to be hunky-dory with Python. And then in the second video, what we're going to do is we're actually going to go through the pip install of PySide2 as well as talk about this PySide2uic error and actually go through the steps that I go through in order to rectify it. There's probably a much more streamlined way of doing this these days, but just for anybody that does have any issues with this stuff and kind of finds that this method works, I thought I'd put it into a video because there's not many people necessarily talking about it. So without further ado, let's get on to installing Eclipse and actually setting that up for Python. So the first thing that we're going to want to do here is we're just going to want to actually go and install Python, right? This is a install Python 3. This is, as I say, a virtual machine. It's probably why it's coming up at a weird aspect ratio and stuff. And just to follow suit to the actual issues that my teammate was having, we're actually going to install the same version of Python 3 that he did, and this is Python 3.78. Whether this works with other versions of Python, I'd like to say yes, but without testing it, can't exactly say too sure. So what we're going to do is we're just going to get the executable here, and we're just going to download that, and we're just going to install this as standard. There we go. And one thing that we can do before this actually runs through, I should have done it before it ran through, is if you come into your CMD, your command prompt, and just type in the word Python, it should give you a readback as to what version of Python is actually installed on your machine. We can probably do that very quickly now, and this will actually be a sanity check for me. Sorry, having to work in the confines of the virtual machine here. It's running a bit slow. Python. And you can see that it returns nothing, right? Which means that we don't necessarily have Python installed, and I'm sure this is Windows trying to tell me to do something right now. But so yeah, you can see that we don't have a Python installation on this virtual machine. So all we're going to do is we're going to install it. I could add Python 3.7 to the path. I think I will do that. And yeah, that's what we'll do. We'll just install it. And yeah, just to kind of double down on this explanation, yeah, I'm running this on a virtual machine on a laptop, which is quite old. I wanted to get like a fresh environment, something that was away from any work stuff, and yeah, just something that was going to be, fresh and default. So, we're installing Python at the moment. But as that's going, actually, what we can be doing is we can also be downloading Eclipse. Now, this will probably work for any kind of like interpreter or any kind of IDE in order to get this to work with PySide2 and the PySide2uic thing at the very end of all of this. But fundamentally, yeah, I'm just going to use download Eclipse because it's what I'm used to. So we'll just get Eclipse here very quickly, and we will download. we'll let that kind of download. One thing to note about this as well is this is not going to be a setup for any kind of motion buildery kind of stuff. There's some motion builder stuff that I do want to talk about in the future. One in particular is how to simulate callbacks for motion builder. Which is kind of cool and kind of interesting to see. I don't want to do too much of this kind of like setup process kind of stuff. I'd much prefer to kind of hone in on the issues that people might have and then kind of um, figure those things out and to get that documented online. Okay, cool. So setup was successful. Yeah, we're okay with all of this. I don't bother with the disabling of the path limit at the moment. We'll just hit close. But now what we should be able to do is we should be able to do CMD in here, bring up our command prompt, and we should now be able to type in Python. And we should see, hey, 3.7.8. That's awesome. It means that our Python is set up and ready to go. So the next thing I want to install is Eclipse. And again, I can imagine this is going to take a little bit of time just because of what I'm running on. I need 64-bit Java 1.8.0. Okay, so Java has now successfully installed. Let's try and install Eclipse again. Hey, here we go. Right, so we'll go through the Eclipse installation, and we'll make sure that everything is kind of set up, ready for Python. Okay, so the first box that you're going to be met with when you start up installing Eclipse is this box right here, which is asking you kind of like what kind of a developer are you. For our purposes, what we're going to be doing is doing Eclipse for committers. All of this stuff is perfectly fine. Yeah, we will go and install that, and then we will again accept the user agreement, and we shall wait whilst Eclipse installs now. Okay, so we've got a pop-up here. I'm just going to hit remember choice and hit accept. And yeah, so all of that slowdown, all of the slowdown that we had in the middle of that installation there is always about like trying to get to websites and stuff like that. So I'm not entirely sure what's been going on. But once we've done that, we can hit launch and Eclipse will start to load up for us. Take a couple of seconds, but once it has loaded, we'll have the makings to kind of start building up our environment in order to get this PySide2 and PySide2uic issue kind of sorted out. So it's going to ask you for a workspace, and this is essentially just an area that Eclipse is going to look at in order to try and find out all of your current projects and stuff like that. You can have multiple workspaces if you wanted to, but for the moment we're just going to use the default Eclipse workspace. We'll hit launch, and we will see that Eclipse is starting up. Okay, so Eclipse has finally started up, and we've got this nice little welcome screen here, but we're just going to get rid of that for the moment. So the first thing that we actually want to do is we want to install PyDev, and PyDev is basically an IDE that we can install into Eclipse. So we're able to interpret Python code, and we're able to run with Python just as we would want to. It's not just Python that it works with, it also works with IronPython, which is good for like if you're ever working with like Motive or OptiTrack stuff, if you're doing motion capture stuff. And it also works with Jython, something that I've never touched and don't know if I ever will. So yeah, the first thing that we're going to want to do is want to go to help, and we're going to want to install new software, and this is where we are going to install PyDev. Now, there is a particular website that you can type in here, and it will give you all of the updates and stuff like that for PyDev. And that is http:// and we are going to go to pydev.org/updates, and make sure you type that in correctly, and you should just be able to enter here, and it should go and fetch everything that you can kind of work with. And what we're looking for is PyDev, so we're just going to tick on PyDev. Don't tick on the integration, just tick on PyDev and hit next. It's going to do some calculations, make sure that the dependencies are all okay and all that kind of stuff, and just let it run its business at the moment. Yep, cool. So that's all good. We can hit next on this. Just remember to accept the licenses here, and you can see that stuff is going on at the bottom here as it's trying to figure all of this stuff out. We'll just hit finish, and you can see that now Eclipse is starting to install the software for us. Install anyway. And also you'll have to restart Eclipse once all of this is done, so we'll just do a quick restart on Eclipse right now. So Eclipse is just restarting here, and we should get it back in a second or so. Cool. So now what we're actually going to do, now that PyDev is installed, is we're going to give PyDev some of our kind of like our information about where our Python installation is and stuff like that, so it can actually start to do the interpreting for us and actually, do its business. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go to Window, and we're going to go to Preferences, and we are going to go down to PyDev, and we're going to go down to interpreters, and you can see here the different languages that PyDev kind of works with here. We've got IronPython, Jython, and Python, but what we're actually more interested in for this kind of setup tutorial in order to get to the PySide stuff is the Python interpreter, and we're just going to browse to Python. Now, where this goes is sometimes a goddamn mystery, but we're going to go to users, we're going to go to Olive because that's not my name. And when you're at this point, you can just type in app data and just quickly bypass having to get past the hidden folders and all that kind of stuff. In local, I'm going to go to programs, we're going to go to Python, Python 3.7, and there you go. That's your Python application that you actually want to link into this. So we're just going to hit open on that. Give your interpreter, a decent name. So for this, it's going to be Python 3.7.8. I do have Eclipse working with Python 2.7 for some projects if I'm doing something in Motion Builder and stuff like that. Python 3, 3.8 in some instances. So just make sure that you name your interpreter, appropriately, so you know what you're switching to inside of Eclipse. We'll hit OK on that, we'll hit OK on that, and then cool, there we go. We have Python all set up, and you can see that we've got pip here and setup tools. What we can do just as a quick sanity check is we can apply this. It's going to set up our Python path and everything, and we're just going to do like a really small script, just a print statement or something, just to ensure that it is being interpreted as we expect it to be. Cool. So now everything is kind of mostly ready for us to go. The last thing that we need to do is actually set up. Oh, there's one of the pop-ups, so we'll allow access. The last thing that we need to do is actually get this, more set up for interpreting Python than say what it's natively supposed to do, which is Java. So what we can do here is in the top right here is where you have your different environments. We're just going to go to the Java one that we've got there and hit close, and then we're just going to hit the plus sign here, and what we're going to do is we're going to click on PyDev, and we're going to hit open. And once this is done, we should have an outline which looks a little bit like this, and this is kind of us ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to right click new, I'm going to make a new project, and we'll call this, it's a PyDev project, so we'll just come down and hit PyDev project, hit next. We'll give the project a name, and because this is the PySide2uic kind of hack around or fix, we'll call it PySide2 UIC underscore example. Python, yes. Grammar version, same as the interpreter, which is currently 3.7.8, and everything else is kind of good to go. So we'll hit finish on that. And cool, we've got a nice little project here, and you can actually see that that is where our interpreter is as well, the thing that's actually going to run our code. So we can right click on side of this this example, and we're just going to go and create a new PyDev module, and that PyDev module is going to be our example. So we'll just call this test for the sake of just keeping it nice and light. Package, I don't necessarily, well, you don't in this particular instance have to put in a package, or at least I don't have to for what we're doing here. But if you did have, say, multiple packages inside of your project, then you can certainly put your PyDev module inside one of those packages just to keep everything neat and tidy. A lot of the times I like to have like a UI one, which is just like specifically for all of my UI stuff if I'm compiling UIs, like with PySide2uic. Um, and yeah, Eclipse is just going to hang there for a little bit. Again, I think a lot of this is coming from the fact that it's a virtual machine, or it needed to do another pop-up there. Here, yeah, all of this is perfectly fine for the moment for what we want to do. Cool. So now what we can do is we can just do a quick little print statement. So print hello world. How generic is that? I'm also going to get the console up, and that is in show view, and we're just going to bring up the console. So if we do run anything here, we shall get a real-time output. We're just going to hit run as, Python run, we'll hit OK, and yeah, that's cool. And then we should see hello world at the bottom. Cool. So technically, everything that we've done here now is set up Eclipse with Python 3.7.8. We've set up a little kind of example area where we can have this script running, and that's going to conclude the beginning first video of this. The reason I wanted to include setting up Eclipse like this is for anybody that does have a problem with PySide2uic. I just wanted to do a fresh environment, fresh everything pretty much, and whilst it's a little bit slow on my end, I should be able to cut this up so it's a little bit quicker for you guys. So in the next video, what we're going to do is we're actually going to get to the meat and veg of all of this problem, which is PySide2uic and actually getting it to work. Okay, so yeah, we'll see you in the next video.